One.
My name is Yarrow from the Bahamas.
So I'm just gonna ask you a few questions. So what is gender?
So gender is effectively the properties we assign to the sexes, but it has recently evolved into even simply what you identify as in a more broad sense, not connected to sex. However, the way the word gender started is quite ambiguous. Some people believe that it was that way from the beginning, some people believe it was directly connected to sex. I personally believe that the word seems to have more to do with the properties and not the sex. However, I think that the word gender is a bit overused and possibly unnecessary.
So what does gender equality mean to you?
Gender equality means to me a world in which there are no boundaries based on your gender. Not necessarily that every gender has the same exact outcome. So, for instance, if there's a pay gap, I have a problem with a pay gap that has prejudice at the base of it. Not necessarily any pay gap, because pay gaps can exist. For instance, nurses are mainly women. There's no real issue with that, and there's all kinds of different scenarios you can bring up. And because of the fact that women, generally speaking, make less money, there is a question of, wait, is this really just what women want, or is this a matter of sexism? And that's a very complicated issue, and I think it depends on where you're talking about in the situation.
So seeing as you're from the Bahamas and you're currently living in Japan, do you see any considerable differences in the way that gender equality is perceived back home in the Bahamas and in Japan?
Well, in the Bahamas, I would say misogyny is pretty rife, although it's kind of going down a little bit. I think a lot of misogyny can come from a place of religion and possibly a place of ignorance. And because of that, one would assume that Japan would have less misogyny. From my personal experience, I haven't really seen much misogyny, although I've seen lots of people say there is, and because Japan is more conservative, it's possible that Japan is more likely to accept typical gender roles. But my personal view on the matter is, if a person wants to go into typical gender roles, and women in society are happy with it, is there really an issue? And I can't say that I know enough about Japan or Japanese people to say that I know whether or not women are happy with it. And I also can't say whether or not women's happiness directly correlates to the fairness of the situation. But certainly it's much less bad than my home country.
Thank you.